CBS Broadcast Center in Los Angeles. This is CBS2 News at 5 p.m.
More than a dozen potential and credible victims have now come forward in the case of a Newport Beach doctor and his girlfriend accused of drugging and raping women.
The DA says investigators are being flooded right now by calls from women who think they might be victims. And
today, lawyers for the reality show doctor and his girlfriend spoke out. CBS2 Orange County reporter Michelle Gili is live in Santa Ana with information on what that DA and the doctor's attorneys had to say. Michelle.
The defense attorneys, Pat, spoke out before cameras for the first time today, and they say they are prepared to defend against these charges. They also say that Dr. Grant Robicheaux and his girlfriend, Sarissa Riley, have known for months that they're under investigation. Meantime, the district attorney is saying today that more than 50 women have reached out to his office, and he says he's identified more victims.
We have more than 12 now.
The count is now at least a dozen women, according to the Orange County District Attorney, who have come forward to say that Newport Beach surgeon Grant Robicheaux and his girlfriend Sarissa Riley drugged and raped them.
As to Robicheaux, we're examining crimes that may have taken place from 2 decades ago to the present day. We're expanding our inquiry to several states as well as to other parts of California.
38-year-old Robicheaux went to medical school in Louisiana and New York. The one-time Bravo reality show actor talked about his perfect woman.
I'm looking for that partner for life.
Orange Coast Magazine voted the orthopedic surgeon 2013 Bachelor of the Year. Officials say the couple worked in tandem, luring young women from bars and restaurants in Newport Beach and beyond. The DA has hundreds of video clips and digital media that allegedly show the couple having sex with incapacitated women at Robicheaux's Newport Beach home. The DA has filed 2 cases so far, alleging rape and attempted rape in 2016. Yet defense lawyers for the pair questioned today why their arrests came just a week and a half ago.
As we know, this investigation has now been going on for years, and they were not arrested long ago. They were just recently arrested at their home. So I think that also speaks to the seriousness of these allegations, or lack thereof, as far as the district attorney and law enforcement is concerned.
Grant Robicheaux and 31-year-old Sarissa Riley are out of jail, each posting $100,000 bail. At last check, the doctor's medical license has not been suspended. We've learned law enforcement is keeping a close eye on the couple so they cannot flee.
They have not fled. They have not moved. They have not gone into hiding. Grant even left the country prior to his arrest.
And the defense attorney says the doctor came back on his own. Now, this couple, according to officials, are known to be big travelers. They go to places like Burning Man in the Nevada desert and many other places in order to meet these women, allegedly. The doctor attended medical school at Louisiana State and NYU. The DA wants women to know that in case there are women there who may have been victimized. And Newport Beach police did seize from the doctor's home illegal drugs. This is back in January, and weapons, including assault rifles. The couple will be in court at the end of October. That's the latest live in Santa Ana. Back to you.
Michelle, thank you. Now to developing news at this hour. A Friday firestorm in the nation's capital over the fate of the Deputy Attorney General who's overseeing the Russia investigation.
Now, a new report about Rod Rosenstein could give President Trump the cover he needs to fire him. CBS chief political reporter Dave Bryan is here with these explosive claims, and they were made in a New York Times report.
That's correct. More palace intrigue in Washington and more turmoil for the Justice Department, which has had plenty, right?
Yeah.
Rod Rosenstein has been a White House punching bag since Attorney General Jeff Sessions recused himself from the Russia investigation. The Deputy Attorney General has reportedly felt he's on the firing line. Well, after today's report, Rosenstein's feeling even more heat. Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein reportedly floated the idea of wearing a wire to secretly record President Trump last year. Rosenstein, the second most powerful person at the Justice Department, also reportedly talked with Department of Justice officials about recruiting cabinet members to invoke the 25th Amendment to remove Mr. Trump from office for being unfit. According to the New York Times, this was just days after the president fired James Comey as FBI director. Rosenstein has strongly denied the report, saying in a statement, "The New York Times story is inaccurate and factually incorrect. I will not further comment on a story based on anonymous sources who are obviously biased against the department and are advancing their own personal agenda." One source who was in the room for the discussion told CNN Rosenstein was being sarcastic when he discussed the wire comment. But others told the New York Times Rosenstein was serious and even raised the idea of others wearing a wire. The Times report, in part, relies on memos written by former FBI acting director Andrew McCabe. McCabe, whose memos have been handed over to special counsel Robert Mueller's team, was fired earlier this year following an onslaught of Twitter attacks from the president. A Justice Department official revealed to CNN they're skeptical of McCabe's description of events, suggesting he has credibility issues and wanted to do what he could to lay the groundwork for the appointment of a special counsel after Comey's firing. But another source believes McCabe had no incentive to lie while taking those meticulous notes. Through his attorney, McCabe says he doesn't know how the Times got a hold of his notes. And today, White House officials would only say they were aware of the Rosenstein story yesterday. Pat and Jeff, there'll be more coming on this one, for sure.
All right. We look forward to hearing from you, Dave Bryan. Well, the Rod Rosenstein story is breaking in the midst of the Brett Kavanaugh Supreme Court confirmation controversy.
That's right. The Senate Judiciary Chair has just said that senators will vote on the Kavanaugh confirmation Monday if no deal is reached with his accuser to tell her side of the story. CBS 2's Juan Fernandez live in the news right now with the behind-the-scenes negotiations and the president's upfront attack that happened today. Juan?
Jeff, Pat, through her lawyer, Christine Blasey Ford has said she wants senators deciding the fate of Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh to hear what she says he did to her when they were teenagers. But death threats are apparently a big roadblock in the negotiations. And today, President Trump took to Twitter to attack Blasey Ford directly. It started with praise for Judge Brett Kavanaugh, calling him a fine man facing partisan assault. Minutes later, a second tweet moved to Christine Blasey Ford, who alleges Kavanaugh sexually assaulted her at a party when they were teens. President Trump tweeted if the attack was as bad as Ford said, she or her loving parents would have filed charges with local law enforcement. Minutes later, after that, he wondered why someone didn't call the FBI 36 years ago. 3 tweets changed a week-long White House narrative. Listen to what counsel Kellyanne Conway said about Ford just before the tweets went out.
There's no reason to attack her is the reason. There's no reason.
Female supporters of Kavanaugh, who denies Ford's claim, vouched for his character.
The reason that we know that this allegation is false is because we know Brett Kavanaugh.
Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell put it bluntly.
In the very near future, Judge Kavanaugh will be on the United States Supreme Court.
According to several sources, the Senate Judiciary Committee will propose a Wednesday hearing rather than Monday, with Ford testifying first and outside counsel asking the questions. Here's what Ford's team wants: for her to testify after Kavanaugh, questioning by senators with no outside counsel, and a subpoena for reported witness Mark Judge. Negotiations continue, so have Trump tweets, including one hours after the first series, saying let Ford testify or not, and take the vote. Now, once again, Senate Judiciary Committee Chair Chuck Grassley has now set a 7 p.m. deadline for Ford's final answer. He says if they don't hear from her, they will vote on Kavanaugh's nomination on Monday. Pat and Jeff, it's clear the clock is ticking here.
Certainly is, Juan. Thank you so much. And our coverage of this story continues next hour on CBS 2 News at 6.
Local women and victims react to the president's tweet about Christine Blasey Ford's decision not to report the alleged attack decades ago.
And of course, there will be much more on this case and the confirmation controversy at 6:30 on the CBS Evening News with Jeff Glor.
Well, 2 homeless people attacked in downtown L.A. have died, and now detectives are looking into whether their deaths are connected to another deadly attack. Police are looking for this man, calling him a person of interest in the beatings along South Flower Street on September 16th. 3 homeless men were attacked with a baseball bat. Then yesterday morning, 39-year-old Stephen Cruz Jr.'s body was found under the Santa Monica Pier. Investigators who believe their person of interest is homeless himself want to know if he could be behind that deadly attack as well. Well, a tough day in court for family and friends of a 21-year-old UCLA student who was murdered.
And CBS 2's Amy Johnson is here now with the sentence of this horrific crime. Amy?
Yeah, really horrific. And the judge had strong words for the suspect today. He is the second man accused in this gruesome murder. And as the victim's family and friends looked on, they learned his fate.
Mr. Medina's crimes are truly monstrous.
Exactly 3 years after Alberto Medina killed UCLA student Andrea Del Vesco, he received a life sentence.
Brutally murdered a beautiful, innocent person. He's seriously wounded an entire community. He must never walk free again.
It was 2015 when firefighters arrived at the 21-year-old's burning Westwood apartment and found her body. The fourth-year UCLA student had been stabbed 19 times.
I am forever devastated by that reality that such a gruesome murder was committed on my best friend.
Medina and another man who was also a UCLA student, Eric Marquez, broke into 2 apartments that day and stabbed Del Vesco, who was in the second apartment. Then they set her home on fire. They were caught on camera running from the scene.
There are no excuses for what the defendant did in this case.
Deputy DA Victor Avila.
That when he was caught, about a week later, he showed no remorse. He actually shifted the blame of the murder to his friend. He actually then also blamed it on alcohol.
Medina was found guilty of first-degree murder, arson, and animal cruelty. Del Vesco's dog died from the fire.
How do you explain in words how your heart and soul have been broken and shattered into millions of pieces?
Medina did not react to anything said or displayed in the courtroom. He sat through a 10-minute slideshow of Del Vesco's life and listened to nearly 10 victim impact statements with no visible emotion.
And Medina's accomplice, Eric Marquez, is serving 2 years, 8 months in prison after he pleaded guilty last year to first-degree burglary and accessory after the fact. Back to you.
Amy, thank you. One day after a student and teacher were shot outside of a Van Nuys school, some parents are complaining about what happened at a nearby store.
Meanwhile, the wounded teen tells us at first he didn't even realize he had been shot. CBS 2's Cara Finstrom has more.
The employees at Starbucks instructed these kids to leave, and they had nowhere to go except into gunfire. The school was on lockdown.
Jody Kanowitz is grateful her daughter Tani was not hurt when shots rang out near Champs Charter School. Tani and her 2 friends were inside this Starbucks eating lunch.
These kids had to have more sense than the employees at Starbucks and argue with them basically and tell them, well, where are we supposed to go?
Kanowitz says fortunately the LAPD came quickly and locked down the store with Tani inside.
We think that everyone has a responsibility for students.
Principal Linda Pierce is now looking into what happened. She says the school is also reviewing its policy that allows some students with parental permission to leave campus for lunch.
A bunch of people that were running by me were just in tears.
16-year-old Harper Maloney also ate at Starbucks yesterday. He'd left minutes earlier and was crossing the street when he was shot in the leg.
And I felt like my leg was like burning. And so I lifted up my pants, and there was just blood everywhere.
Maloney live-streamed these images to let family and friends know he was okay. Today, the principal told us the teacher who was shot suffered a shattered bone but is out of the hospital. The LAPD quickly arrested 2 suspects and said the 2 victims were unintentional targets.
Guns are accessible to lots of people.
Tani became emotional when she talked about the violence.
It shouldn't be like this.
And I did speak with a Starbucks representative. He stressed that this was a fluid, frightening situation for everyone, but said they will be looking into that parent's concerns. He says in the end, he's glad that everyone remained inside, was locked in, and was safe. Reporting here from Van Nuys, Cara Finstrom, CBS 2 News.
Well, still to come right here at 5 o'clock, another scare near a local school. A man tries to grab a 9-year-old girl and pulls her into a van. We are talking to parents, students, and police.
Plus a new law that lets utility companies pass along wildfire lawsuit costs to you, the consumer.
I'm Jim Hill, live at Chavez Ravine, where today the Dodgers have announced a new member to their ownership group, and she is one of the biggest names in all of sports. We'll have that and more for you, and that's next in sports.
And of course, fall right around the corner, heading our way tomorrow. In fact, I'll have your fall forecast ahead.